Emanation, the idea of overflow or outpouring, gained cosmological depth in al-Farabi's philosophy and became a significant theory about the formation of the universe. Al-Farabi used this concept to explain the process of the universe's existence and made it more systematic, giving it a cosmological dimension. Especially with the concept of active intellect, he added a new depth to the process of emanation. In this context, al-Farabi developed the theory of 10 intellects while explaining the creation and order of the universe. According to this theory, the world of existence consists of intellects that follow each other in stages and finally reach the active intellect. The active intellect is the final stage that influences the human mind and transfers knowledge to it. In this system, each intellect emanates by overflowing from the intellect before it, and thus the chain of existence continues. The process of emanation expresses an order in which an outpouring, that is, an emanation, flows from the same source to all beings. However, this outpouring is not reflected in the same way to every being. On the contrary, the differentiation of emanation stems from the inner characteristics and levels of competence of the beings that accept this divine emanation. In other words, each being receives the emanating emanation in accordance with its capacity, nature, and structure, and this difference forms the basis of diversity in the universe. In this context, the process of emanation, while symbolizing universal unity on the one hand, on the other hand, prepares the ground for beings to show differences in line with their ontological structures. Thus, the same source that emanates creates the multiplicity and difference in the universe. When explaining the process of emanation, al-Farabi emphasizes that each agent is effective only through its own existence. This means that each agent influences directly with its own essence without the need for any intermediary. This situation shows the simplicity of the agent, that is, that it has a pure structure, free from complexity. In al-Farabi's philosophy, this simplicity means that every being functions with its own essence and acts according to its nature without the need for any external intermediary. This approach is particularly evident in concepts such as the active intellect. The active intellect affects the entire universe through its own essence, and no intervention of any external element is required during this effect. This principle of simplicity provides purity and continuity in the order of beings and the universal flow. The first cause, or in al-Farabi's terms, the first good, al-Hayrul Awal, has arranged all beings through its absolute existence and perfection. The first cause is the beginning and source of everything in the universe. Beings gain their existence with the emanation overflowing from this source. However, the differences that arise during the emanation process are shaped according to the nature, capacity, and abilities of each being. In other words, the effect of emanation does not reach every being in the same way. Beings differ in their power and ability to accept this emanation. Islamic philosophers have explained this differentiation with the terms inaya, providence, jad, generosity, and istidad, disposition especially. While inaya means the continuous goodness and grace of the first cause towards beings, jad means the generous offering of emanation by the first cause to each being according to its capacity. Istidad, on the other hand, is related to the ability of beings to accept this emanation and their innate capacities. Thus, the order of the first cause reveals a cosmological structure that both arises from an absolute unity and diversifies according to the different capacities of beings. God-existence relationship. Explaining the relationship between God and existence on a rational and consistent basis has been the goal of many philosophers in deist and theist systems. Al-Farabi tried to interpret this relationship within the framework of the absolute, loving and pure God understanding offered by Islam. He argues that beings come into existence from God, the first cause, through emanation, that is, in the form of overflow, and that this is a completely spiritual process. According to al-Farabi, this emanation process does not require any deficiency, change, or intervention in God's existence. While God continues his existence with absolute perfection and transcendence, the world of existence necessarily emanates from him. This emanation process occurs involuntarily, that is, without any conscious preference of God as a requirement of his own existence. This approach of Al-Farabi aims to preserve the unchanging and perfect structure of God. When the absoluteness and necessity of the existence of the first cause are constant, it is inevitable that all other beings will necessarily arise from it. However, this view has been criticized by later Islamic thinkers, as this kind of necessity seems to contradict God's free will. Nevertheless, by arguing that beings necessarily emanate from God, Al-Farabi placed the cosmological structure in a logical order and preserved the perfect and unchanging structure of the first cause. While God's pure state was preserved, the emanation of beings from the first cause was accepted as a natural necessity. Al-Farabi's theory of emanation is discussed in detail, especially in his work Arau Ahlil Madinatil Fadila. According to this theory, the celestial beings emanating from God are ranked in a hierarchy according to their proximity and distance to God as spiritual beings. Each celestial intellect shows a different degree of closeness to God, and this closeness determines their level of existence. In Al-Farabi's hierarchical order, the chain reaction of celestial intellects on each other is explained by processes of knowledge and thought. In this process, the first intellect emerges as a result of the first cause, God, thinking of himself. According to Al-Farabi, God's thinking is not just a passive activity, it is an active action, and this thought process can lead to the emergence of new beings. God's thinking of his own essence led to the emanation of the first intellect, the highest among beings. By emphasizing how thought and knowledge play an active role in this creative process, Al-Farabi states that this action of God can lead to the emergence of beings without requiring any movement or intervention. Ibn Sînâ, with a similar approach, explained through examples how thought can lead to action. Ibn Sînâ addressed the theory of emanation in a more comprehensive and systematic way, incorporating concepts such as fade, overflow, feel, act, ibda, creation, inaya, providence, and qasd, intention. This conceptual expansion has allowed for the enrichment and more in-depth examination of the theory of emanation. Ibn Sînâ's approach reveals that the emanation process is not just a simple process of overflow, but also a system integrated with God's will and knowledge. One of Ibn Sînâ's important works dealing with the theory of emanation is Al-Mabda wal-Ma'ad, which is among his early works. This work explains the relationship between God's absolute and perfect existence and the world of generation and corruption in the context of the theory of emanation. According to Ibn Sînâ, the beings emanating from God through overflow are created for a purpose, and God's deliberate action and providence play a role in this process. Thus, the emanation process is understood not only as the necessary emergence of beings, but also as a process shaped by God's wise and guiding will. This approach has added a deeper metaphysical and divine dimension to the theory of emanation. According to Ibn Sînâ, the emanation process takes place in a hierarchy starting from God and going from the most perfect beings to the least perfect. In this process, the beings emanating from the first being, God, take their places in this hierarchy according to their abilities and existential capacities. The hierarchical order follows a descending process from God's absolute perfection to less perfect material beings through spiritual beings. While spiritual beings are at the highest level of the emanation process, material beings constitute the lower levels of this order. Spiritual beings are the closest beings to God and are endowed with the highest degree of perfection and wisdom. The emanation process starts from these spiritual beings and progresses towards material beings, ending in the sublunar realm with 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire. These elements are the basic building blocks of the material world and constitute the lowest level of the emanation process. According to Ibn Sînâ's theory, the next 10 intellects emanating from the first being bring about the existence of celestial bodies. These celestial bodies are considered to be unique examples of their kind, and each is fixed in its hierarchical position, beings close to perfection. This hierarchical order of celestial intellects ensures the continuity of order and cosmic structure in the universe. Thus, Ibn Sina's theory of emanation explains the creation and order of the universe as a process in which every being, starting from God, has a place in a hierarchical system. The emanation theories of Farabi and Ibn Sina play a fundamental role in understanding the relationship between God and existence in Islamic philosophy. These theories address how all beings in the universe emanate from God and the workings of this process within a metaphysical framework. Farabi's hierarchical order, while explaining the stages of the emanation process, shows how beings are ranked according to their proximity to God. Ibn Sina, on the other hand, added conceptual richness to this order by adding terms such as faid, feel, ibda and inaya to the process, and enabled a more comprehensive examination of emanation. These theories put forward by both philosophers have made significant contributions to how the relationship between God's transcendence and the creation of beings can be explained rationally in Islamic thought. The hierarchical order established by Farabi was further deepened with Ibn Sina's conceptual contributions, and the theory of emanation became a metaphysical foundation in Islamic philosophy. These approaches have prepared an important ground for the development of the theory of emanation within Islamic thought and have continued to be discussed by later philosophers.